All right, mic check. Are we up? Are we up? I think we're up. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is the morning show here on Stock Market TV. Spencer Israel, JC Parets. Steve Strazza is down in Miami at Future Proof. Maybe he'll stop by the show today, but maybe he won't. Regardless, you know who's back is Mr. Kenny Glick. We'll have him in the house. So that'll be exciting. We'll talk to Kenny about what he's seeing out there, what he's trading or not trading, and maybe he'll share some of his adventures from over the weekend. Today's guest, for the second time appearing on our show, Frances Horodelski. She'll be on around 9 o'clock, a little after 9. And yeah, what's doing, chat? We'll go over some highlights from JC's conference call last night. We'll share a couple of things. A couple of big movers, really big movers this morning. Tough day for Sarepta. It's gonna be one of those days if you're a Sarepta shareholder, because ouch. And yeah, we'll talk about the price actions the past couple of days. As Grant Hawkridge said in his daily number, the Bulls are still in the game, it would appear, for the moment, at least. All right, we'll talk about that. Drop me a like if you'd be so kind, and let's get the show on the road, all right?
All right, we back on the morning show. How's everybody doing this morning?
All recovered from your St. Patrick's Day / conference call hangover?
You know, I got to tell you, I was at the beginning of my conference call, and I was like, oh, what day is it today? I was like, oh, March 17th, and here I am doing a conference call on St. Patrick's Day, and a much younger version of myself would have been very disappointed and strangely confused by my behavior on St. Patrick's Day. It kind of hit me that I scheduled the conference call on St. Patrick's Day, so my bad. I guess I'm going with my lifestyle now that I'm, old married man with kids, and like drinking all day on a Monday is just not on the schedule.
No, I mean, but it made sense. It's the middle of the month. You got to do what you got to do in the middle of the month. I didn't even know until Friday that St. Patrick's Day is on the same day every year. Because, some holidays are, some holidays aren't, right?
Jews don't celebrate St. Patty's?
I mean, they celebrate it like any other non-Irish person would, right? But
I don't think so. I think like Italians like really hit St. Patty's Day pretty hard. The Spanish,
do they? Okay.
The Polish in Chicago, they hit it pretty hard.
I don't live in an especially Irish area, so
I don't either. But it was,
yeah,
good though. It was good.
Yeah. Good call last night?
I think so.
Okay.
I tend to get a little carried away and then go like an hour 10.
Oh yeah, credit to you. Last night was hyper efficient.
Yeah.
The call lasted like just under an hour.
Yeah,
which
about that.
is the first time that's happened in a while. It's been a minute since we had one of those done in under an hour.
Contrary to popular belief, not much has changed over the last couple of weeks. So I kind of tried to reiterate that. We covered a lot of ground at the monthly conference call at the beginning of March.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of kind of like more of the same. I know like the news likes to make a big to-do because that's their job. Let's remember the people in the news are there to distract you from what's actually important. That's literally their job. Like, what can we say today to distract our audience from what's actually important so they watch our bullshit instead of what they actually should be doing? That's literally the job of the media. You understand, right? So for us, that's not our job at all. Our job is to literally try to make money in the market, and you guys can follow along or not. Like, all good either way, so.
All good. All right, let's do
you
a
see
little
how
bit.
the conflicts of interest there, like us, you, me, Strazza, Sean, like we're in line with other investors. Like we have the same goals: make money, extract profits from the market. In the media, that's not their job at all. They're in the distraction business. It's really malicious. Is really what it is.
Look, man, there's a saying in the media: you got to feed the beast, right? You got to feed the beast. The beast is a never-ending. It's always hungry.
Listen, if I got paid based on the number of viewers and had to compare myself to other, hyper parabolic news networks that I'm competing with, then of course I'm going to just say dumb shit to get dumb people to watch me. Like that's how I get paid. So like they're not bad people. They're nice people. It's just that their best interests are not in line with yours.
What's that old line from Jerry Seinfeld? It's amazing how there's always exactly enough news every day to fit in the newspaper. It's amazing. How do they do that?
Yeah.
All right.
That's really funny, actually.
Yeah, let's do state of the markets.
All right. All right, right away already. Kenneth Kyle hating on my efficiency. He likes the hour-plus conference calls, of course. Of course. Nerd alert, Kenneth. Nerd alert. I appreciate you, brother. Dow futures down this morning, almost 0.25%. Still above that 42,000. 142, 130. Hanging in there by a thread, but hanging in there nevertheless. S&P 500 futures 57 and change, down about 1/3% this morning. Again, still above those levels. The NASDAQ 100 futures, on the other hand, under 20,000, slightly below those key levels. So the NASDAQ definitely the loser here. We got the 30-year bond futures down 0.5%, 116 and change. Crude oil futures up again, 1.3%, right at 68 and a quarter. We got copper up 1%, above 5. Copper above 5, back above 5. Wow. Doesn't, not exactly a characteristic of some epic credit event out there if copper is above 5. Gold above 3,000, new all-time highs for gold this morning, up 1%, $3,041 an ounce. Shout out gold bugs. Whoop, whoop. Silver up almost 2%, just under 35, with the VIX still above 20, just below 21. Of course, over in funny money, we got Bitcoin down 1,500 points. That's 1.8% to the downside, 82,500. We've got Ethereum down 1.7%, back below 1,900. What a hot piece of garbage that Ethereum has been. Solana, 123, down 3.5%, down almost 5 points on the day. And then finally, total crypto market cap, Mr. Spencer Israel, 2.65 trillion, trying to hang on for dear life to those prior cycle highs from 2021. That's the sitch. So a little bit of Strazza. I spoke to him yesterday after the Michael Saylor presentation or interview.
Yeah.
And Strazza was like, whoa, this guy's crazy.
Well, I think we knew that.
I guess we kind of knew that, but like,
yeah.
I was like, Strazza, like, was it bullish? Was it bearish? He's like, this guy's out of control. You know, I think he's being more aggressive than ever. It's a zero. You know, like Strazza's like not, I don't want to put words in his mouth because that's not exactly what he said. So I don't want to like totally poo-poo what he said, but like,
he didn't say it was a zero. Let's be clear about that.
He didn't say it was a zero, but basically, you know, he was like reading me his notes and he took very diligent notes. I didn't realize that Strazza was such a note taker.
He didn't use AI for that? I don't understand.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he did. I don't know the answer to that. You might be right. You might have caught him.
You know what sticks out to me is, you know, I do my best to keep my ear to the ground. I read headlines, I read things, and I'm just not seeing a lot about gold.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing a ton of people or a ton of headlines talking about gold being above 3,000.
You're right.
I don't know why. Perhaps people are distracted by the tariffs and the Fed starts their meeting today. I don't know why, but it's being overshadowed by other things.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going on there. First of all, nobody owns it. So it's not like, you know, it's impacting a lot of people. Like it's just, you know, it's not a heavy position for most investors. You know, I think there's a couple of things going on. I think that you know, you're seeing these sentiment readings at historic levels, individual investors, newsletter writers, some of the most bearish readings of all time. I think a lot of that has to do with the irresponsible amount of exposure that these folks have to large cap growth in America.
Yeah.
Their lack of exposure to Europe and Asia and Africa and South America, right? So I think there's an element of that, most definitely. And they don't have that sort of situation in gold. I think that's part of it. But you're absolutely right. You know, especially with the destruction that you're seeing in the US dollar, gold is doing well. Again, not getting talked about at all. Our gold stocks are doing great. They have been some of the best trades this year. And I don't think that's over. I think there's more opportunities. We talked about them last night. I continue to think that there are going to be opportunities in precious metals. You got the gold miners participating now. You got silver participating now. God forbid platinum gets going. I mean, platinum is right there. Should we before we move on, should we just touch on the platinum sitch quick?
Do we have a chart of platinum
We have a
somewhere?
chart. Who is this guy? Who are you talking to, bro? Do we have a chart? Do we have a chart?
Where are
Yeah,
we?
we have a chart. Where is the damn chart? Oh, here it is. So here's platinum. Go up to the new slide 2 here. So this
You
is
slide 2 on your bingo cards.
there it is. New slide 2 in your bingo cards. Market 0, Smokey. So here's what we're seeing. You know, that volatility compression here in platinum is like off the charts, like crazy, like crazy zero. So, you know, from volatility contraction comes volatility expansion, right? Volatility mean reverts. It doesn't trend like asset prices. So with volatility so compressed, we're looking at those Bollinger Band widths down below. The lower it is, the tighter the range. From the tight range comes an expansion of the range. My suspicion is, based on what we're seeing in gold and silver and gold miners, that expansion of the range is going to be to the upside in platinum. Haven't seen it, got to see it. And what's the upside? Why is JC talking about platinum? Who gives a shit about platinum, JC? You know why I give a shit about platinum? Because if this thing resolves to the upside, you're looking at a triple. A triple. And like, you guys know me, I'm not like going out there being like, oh my God, this stock's going to triple. Like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah, you definitely don't say things like that.
I don't.
Very
But
often.
those are the implications for this. So that's, that's why I'm interested in. What do you think about that?
And what do I think about that? You think people are underexposed to gold? How about platinum?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. No doubt. All right, let's go through a couple of things. Go to slide 3 here. You can see yesterday, just this is what's called breadth expansion. This is what's called upside participation expanding. This is not deterioration in market breadth. This is not, distribution. This is breadth expansion and broadening across different continents. New 52-week highs yesterday for China, for Germany, for Chile, for Africa. Shout out Africa. So you're seeing more and more countries, more and more continents participating. And I got people telling me that we're going into a bear market and breadth is deteriorating, JC, and you don't know anything.
Oh,
I'll give you that one. I don't know anything. But what I do know is what we're looking at here, it's just price, it's just fact, is that all of these countries and all of these different continents, 4 continents, I believe, do I have that right? 4 continents are, all of these are making new 52-week highs. So Chile, a lot of copper, a lot of base metals there. Africa, not a lot of mega cap American growth stocks in the Africa ETF, as one would imagine. China, a lot of internet, a lot of technology, but the China stocks, the China internet and China tech stocks are not trading like American internet and American tech stocks. They're trading with copper, right? So even though they might be in the same industry group, they're certainly not trading together. And then Germany, of course, a lot of industrials, a lot of financials, not a lot of American growth stocks in the German index, So huge bifurcation here in what's going on. If you go to slide 4, this one comes fresh from the Bank of America Fund Manager Survey. Shout out Bank of America. Can't believe you guys still exist after that great financial crisis. This is a company that shouldn't be around anymore.
wait a
But they
minute.
are thanks to our tax dollars. So kudos to you, Spencer, for keeping these folks in business so that we can get this lovely fund manager survey. Where, as it turns out, the
Wait a minute.
largest drop in U.S. equity allocation ever.
Wait a minute. I saw a survey from them yesterday that said last week was the most aggressive buy the dip in a long time. So people were buying the dip last week in U.S. stocks. So what gives there? That flies in the face of what this is saying.
Maybe. I did some math. I don't think that yesterday, last week was a huge buy the dip in the U.S. You saw it everywhere else. And as you can see here, the Eurozone, UK, emerging markets, that's where the positioning has been flowing out of U.S. equities, U.S. technology, U.S. consumer discretionary. Like that's about right. And by the way, I don't know what poll you saw, but this is specifically the fund managers that prime with B of A.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
It was probably just a different B of A survey.
I think those were retail investors, maybe.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Oh, that was
Maybe
Josh says that was retail. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So, retail investors really, they don't matter at all. Where the only time that retail investors matter, like these are like the smallest, least relevant investors in the world, they matter to me when they're super scared. Right? That's the only time that retail investors matter, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm the only one right? Like,
Wait, what is interesting? What is interesting to me from this chart is like we were just talking about how nobody owns gold or even platinum, right? And still, it's like that's yes, there were inflows last week into commodities, but they're the bottom of the barrel, right? Like people went these fund managers went everywhere else first. They went Europe, they went cash, they went staples, they went everywhere else before they went to commodities. It just goes to show how unloved commodities are.
Let's just go up to slides 2 through 5 there. Let's just flip through these quick so people can see what retail investors are doing. These are the types of folks that we want to do the opposite of what they're doing. Go to the new slide too, please, Spencer. These are, you talk about dumb money, smart money. That's not true at all. Like we say that just to say like we want to fade these people, we want to ride or die with those folks. But it's not about dumb or smart. In fact, a lot of these individual investors are really, really smart. And a lot of these fund managers are really, really dumb, right? So when we say dumb money, smart money, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're literally smart and dumb. It's more of like we want to fade these folks, we want to ride or die with those folks. Because I could tell you for a fact that some of these institutional investors are dumb as a bag of rocks. Like these people are some of the worst traders ever, like ever, ever, ever. So don't think that it's smart or dumb, but nevertheless, let's stick with the retail investors. We want to do the opposite of what these folks are doing. These are the newsletter writers. They are the most bearish they've been so far this cycle. Go to the next one there. You can zoom in on the newsletter writers. This comes from Investor Intelligence. This data goes back to the 1960s, I believe 1963, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely going back to the 60s. Lowest sentiment so far this bull market. You can keep going, Spencer. So these are individual investors. This is the American Association of Individual Investors, the most bearish they've been. One of the most bearish readings ever, and this goes back to the 1980s, most bearish reading ever. I think only 6 other times have there been more bearish readings. Certainly the most bearish this cycle. And then finally, if you want to just zoom in there so you can really see the bull-bear spread amongst individual investors, down at the same levels we were as the market was bottoming in the summer of 22. So, I think this is great. We want retail investors to be scared and angry and confused. Like that's great. So if you want to go now to, we'll talk about some of this international rotation and what I think is going. Look at that slide 9 there, Spencer. So these are all concepts that we talked about last night on the call. Obviously, we included the trades that go along with it. So if you're interested in those trades and you want to get access to the full call, download the deck. Mr. Spencer Israel, if you would be so kind as to drop the link, because if you are not watching our conference calls, it's like, man, you're missing out on some great alpha, I believe. That's what the kids say, alpha. Josh says, but JC, who's the president, Trump or Musk? I suppose in the United States of America, the president is Trump. He's got I guess his bestie is Elon Musk. I don't understand. I don't know what that has to do with the stock market, but all right. So here we're looking at the S&P 500.
I think he was just quoting you.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Am I quotable? You think I'm pretty quotable?
No, he was. Never mind. It went over your head. Whoosh. Moving on.
So S&P relative to developed markets outside of North America in black, right? Breaking this uptrend line. And just to be clear, I apologize for these diagonal trend lines. I'm much more of a horizontal trend line kind of guy, truth be told. But I couldn't help myself. I can't unsee it. I know it's there. So, these diagonal trend lines are really just a measure of the rate of change, really the acceleration of the rate of change. You know what I'm saying? So U.S. markets making new lows relative to other developed markets. And of course, U.S. in blue relative to emerging markets, also breaking down, making new lows. And then if you look at the advanced decline lines, right? People were talking about how breadth is weak. These are the people who haven't bothered to count, of course. And you're looking at the advanced decline line in developed markets, pushing up against new all-time highs. The advanced decline line among emerging markets also looking very healthy, pushing up against new highs. I don't see really any breadth deterioration there. And all of this rotation out of the U.S. dollar, next slide, out of the U.S. dollar and into these international markets comes after the brilliant minds over at The Economist magazine, where you have journalists parading around as economists, which is great. So you get the best of both worlds. These are the types of folks that we want to do the opposite of what they're doing, of course, journalists and economists. And here you have a combination of both. right? Journalists pretending to be economists. Fantastic data. And so in October, they suggested that the United States was the envy of the world, and they put a wad of hundies, like all about the Benjamins music video, and just sending it into outer space like a rocket ship. The dollar, the United States, envy of the world. And then what do you know? Is immediately thereafter, the United States is the opposite of the envy of the world. You see the United States dollar absolutely collapsing, and the relative strength in U.S. stocks absolutely collapsing as money continues to flow into international. It seems as though, Mr. Spencer Israel, that it's the rest of the world that seems to be the envy, not the United States. So shout out Economist Magazine for nailing it once again. Keep up the good work, folks.
Shout out.
You guys, they're so good. They're so bad. They're so good. Can you go look at slide 12? Because I think this is a really interesting concept that I hadn't really kind of wrapped my head around until this week. And what you have is, you have the 161.8% extension of that entire base, right? So the S&P 500 broke above those levels. The Dow broke above those levels. The NASDAQ broke above those levels and then it failed and is below it. The New York Stock Exchange Composite never did. And the reason it never did is because there's so much international exposure in the New York Stock Exchange Composite. All of these ADRs from around the world trade on the New York Stock Exchange and are included in this composite. So almost half of the largest 100 companies in the New York Stock Exchange are not even American. So that kind of dragged it down, bigger picture. But, and here's the key thing. The international exposure held it back over the last several years. But if you look, the drawdown that we've had over the last month on the New York Stock Exchange Composite is much more shallow than the drawdown in a lot of other areas, particularly in the United States, because the international exposure has served as a buoyancy, right? Is that what it is? Any physics majors? Buoyancy, right? So I thought it was really interesting that kind of like a bigger picture laggard has shown some relative strength for the same reasons that it was a laggard before. Anybody think that's interesting, or am I just like a nerd here? Harmon, they're giving shout out to Bart's Charts. Let me tell you something. Shout out Bart's Charts. James Bartoloni, we got to get him back on the show. He's been doing a show on Sunday evenings, and man, this guy is killing it. People are going nuts over Bartoloni. What a good guy. I've known Bart for I guess like 17, 18 years. He was actually, believe it or not, my CMT level 3 professor. Back in the day, the CMT Association used to have something called the CMTI, the CMT Institute, where like it was, it's kind of like training for the exam or whatever, like Kaplan or one of those, like for SAT, but for the CMT. And Bart was my professor actually, so we became friends, and that was like 17 years ago. Spencer, if you will, can you drop the link to Bart's Charts video from Sunday? Guys, if you missed this, give it a watch. He really is the man, like really. And, he's such a good dude. And he's not like formally trained in finance like the rest of us finance bros. He's an engineer. He's a Top Gun fighter pilot in the Navy.
Is an interesting fellow.
Yeah, really interesting fellow. Looks at the markets way differently than anybody else I know. So if you're looking for some unique perspective on things, he's your guy. Bart's Charts. Shout out Bart. Drop the link, Spencer, please.
Yep. All right. Should we bring on Kenny and then Francis?
Let's do it.
All right. Kenny back from his travels.
It's been a long time coming. They ain't come from my club, they tug it. Putting up numbers, 99 pounds, and I still kept it 100. Hold up. Yeah.
Oh, Kenny Glick in the house.
I made it.
So, how was Miami as an adult?
It's funny that you said that, because I realized that's the first time I was there sort of on my own. It was either my parents taking me there, hanging with my grandparents, or my family. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun. We had a good time. Paced myself, made it. It was the journey home. I couldn't get home. They wouldn't let me leave. Every flight was canceled. I was in the airport. If it wasn't for my friend, I'm gonna give my no. I know nobody knows my friend Anthony. Well, but without Anthony, I wouldn't be here right now. So
thank you, Anthony. Shout out,
yes.
Shout out, Anthony.
Man, they kept canceling our flights, and he was on the phone with the airlines right there. As soon as they canceled, he had us booked on another one. I was like, "Thank you, thank you." It would have been a mess.
Thank you. So, all right, you made it back alive. You
Yeah.
know, we gave it a 50-50 shot. So, here's one for the good guys.
Yes.
You are rocking that James Madison gear today, hardcore.
I have to rotate now. Both, I got JMU women's basketball. It made it to the tournament this year, and Georgia made it in. So Gonzaga first round. I'm going to have to bet Gonzaga. So sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably we want to bet Gonzaga there. Lady Stags making the tournament too. Shout out Fairfield Stags.
What's up? You guys miss me? The big
We
rally.
did.
What happened to quantum stocks? We lit the fuse on Wednesday and Thursday. What was that all about?
Really, it's really a shame you missed yesterday because they all just were blasting.
But listen, Kenny, you tell me. I come to you for guidance and perspective on an intraday basis, looking for the most extreme sell-offs and rallies pre-market that we can fade. You tell me what's on the radar.
Well, I'll tell you something. What we're going to talk about for the next several days, and we're having a class on Saturday if anyone's interested. So this Saturday, 12 o'clock, we get together with my room. Most of it's invite only, but you have to talk to Spencer to get behind the velvet rope, if you will. Club Kenny will be starting at 12 o'clock p.m. on Saturday. We're going to talk about volatility products and the difference that we saw in the UVXY, the UVIX, the VIX in particular, that led us to believe that correction was coming. And then as the UVXY tried to stay strong, it wasn't until it really gave way that's when you knew Friday was more than just a little short covering rally. It was probably going to be a little bit more enormous as it was. So that's where I'm focused. I'm focusing on these UVXY products, the volatility products today, see where we're at. I don't trust the bounce yet, and I don't think it's over. I think they're still going to bleed this Tesla down under 200. So again, I'm looking at the market mostly right now. There's not really any earnings reports to be talked about except for Tiger, TIGR reported. That's a Chinese stock. Again, I don't support the Chinese stocks. Don't really trade them too much. But just watching the market, I think we're going to give way again. The fear cannot be over this quickly. It can't be. I won't accept it this time. So I'm just looking for some retraces. I got some levels we're going to talk about in the room, and we'll take it from there. I'm just going to be very specific with the Qs today, and then the UVXY, kind of giving you an idea of what we're looking at. And those quantum stocks, some of them bounced 100%. So I want to fade some of that also, the RGTIs, the QTMs, QBTS, that kind of stuff.
Kenny, can you tell me what you're looking at in the Qs specifically?
Well, you know what? I came in I was hoping to see a gap up today, but we already sold them off. So I'm looking at, 5-day values right now. So the 5-day VWAP's telling me the easy pullback area is around 476. So if we start giving back, right now we're doing exactly what I was looking for. Pre-market lows, breaking yesterday's close, 8 p.m. lows. So that's where we're going right now. And I'm thinking that, again, the closest area of support for me is that 476. And I hope we get there today. You have 477 before 477, 476. But again, like I said, I'm staying focused on the Qs. I got to get the cobwebs out of my skull also. So I'm be very, very specific today.
Okay. Love it.
Baby.
Yeah, man. I'll get more into it. And also April 11th, we got earnings seasons coming along. So there'll be the banks, we'll be talking about airlines. Before we know it, it'll be full force back into earnings. But right now, I got to stretch my brain a little bit. I can't even focus on the screen.
Kenny, we're glad you're back.
All right, my friends. I'll speak to you later. We'll tell more stories about the 11 and all those clubs that I went to.
Oh, lovely.
Peace.
Was I right? I told him, he asked me about it, and I told him a little bit about it. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay.
I hope I'm not in a position to go to a bachelor party in my 50s because I would die probably. So in any
bachelor
case,
party, I'm 43. I'm almost in my 50s. I think I'm done with bachelor parties. I was trying to think of who my friends are that aren't married yet.
Yeah.
I think we go to like second wife bachelor parties at that age. I think
that's a nice meal out. That's what that is. That's a nice dinner. That's not a weekend. All right, we have Frances Horodelski in the house, and she wants to talk about Canada, JC. So
I love it.
Let's do it,
please. Yo, Jay, we've been friends for a long time. Make the call.
I mean, this is pretty professional, guys.
Nice show you got going here.
Francis.
Hello.
I just want to say how good it is to see you, Francis.
Nice to see you. 43. You're a child. You are a child.
Tell that to my knees, Francis. Tell it to my knees. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know Francis Horodelski, let me tell you something. Francis is a legend in the industry. And I can tell you firsthand, Francis believed in me when I was just a young lad. Early on, Francis was coming in, giving me love, giving me props. Francis, I don't forget. Not everybody believed in me in my 20s, but you were there.
You were something. You were my star right from the get-go. It was good. Good.
I appreciate you, Francis, more than you'll ever know. Francis is a person of the markets. Francis was, of course, a journalist on television in Canada for many years. But Francis comes to this. Francis is one of us, right? So, Francis, why don't you school the folks? And we'll get into markets now, but just kind of to give some perspective on your background and how you approach markets. Can you give us the elevator speech?
Yeah, quickly, 25 years on Bay Street, Wall Street's equivalent. I'm a chartered financial analyst, so I come with a fundamental bent to the markets, but been through a few ups and downs over the years, and did everything from analysts to corporate finance. So I've been around a little bit and then did the TV gig, and now I'm just doing my own thing. And trying to educate people a little bit and trying to have some fun in markets that are right now pretty noisy. So that spells opportunity.
And when you say the markets are pretty noisy, in my experience, markets are generally pretty noisy. What makes this time more noisy than others, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's the speed at which things happen. I mean, we went from all-time highs to a 10% correction for your market in the blink of an eye, and the bearish sentiment got so it rose so quickly, it made your head spin. And some of that is a reflection of what's going on in Washington, obviously, and that's probably where all the noise is coming from. But people are reacting to politics where, in my lifetime, I always said, don't pay attention to politics. They don't matter. On a short-term basis, they seem to be mattering a little bit more. And I've got to get this in, I'm a Canadian, so got to have my elbows up. That's our new phrase up here in Canada. We're hockey players, so we're fighting your guy. And, that's where a lot of noise is happening in Canada as well.
Francis, I got to tell you, listen, I'm Cuban, and Cubans don't know anything about ice or hockey. But I got to tell you, I love hockey. Love it. I was at the minor league hockey game with my family and the kids and everything on Sunday. Here we got some AAA hockey and the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And then I was at the Rangers game in the city last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I don't know what the hell's going on, right? I still can't understand this icing thing. I love it. I love all of it. It's so great.
And my kids would laugh at me. I am not a hockey expert at all. My kids played. I've watched it all my life, but it's fast. I mean, it's a fast moving game and it's hard hitting. So there's lots in it for everybody.
I do like it when they're beating the crap out of each other. I do like that. That's cool.
That's into what people watch. So that brings us to what I wanted to talk about. I don't know what you want to talk about. You can ask me questions, but we've seen, and you've brought to everybody's attention this move over the last while to non-American markets. So you've seen Germany at a new high. Vienna was one of the best performers on a year-to-date basis.
Did you just give a shout out to Austria right there? Did you just give Austria a shout out?
I'm going to Vienna as it happens in May. So there you go. It was up 17% year to date. I mean, what's that?
I know that, Francis, but nobody else knows that. You don't understand. People don't come to me like, yo, JC, are you seeing the Austria index?
No, I don't know really. There's maybe 5 stocks in the index. I'm not a big, I'm not an aficionado on Vienna.
Austria looks great.
Yeah, but the point is that it appears that PMs are looking outside the US. The US was so easy for a couple of years. They got way over their skis in terms of weight, in
Yep.
terms of whether it's technology or just the market generally. Easy peasy. Now it's a little tougher, so they're looking everywhere. And while your president is looking to my country to take it over, not going to happen. There's opportunity in my country. And I think one thing I want to just bring to people's attentions on Canada is that, you can buy $1.40, $1.45 worth of assets in Canada for one of your US dollars. I mean, I think our currency is dirt cheap. A lot of people will argue against that. But I think, when you can buy, $1.45 worth of assets for $1, I think Warren Buffett should come up to Canada.
Warren Buffett, new all-time highs for Berkshire Hathaway, $1.1 trillion in market capitalization for Berkshire Hathaway, loading up on Japanese banks, Uncle Warren.
Yeah, they're worried about him having all that cash, but he's still diligently putting some of it to work.
Francis, I hope that when I'm in my 90s, I am also investing for the long term.
Oh, me
right?
too.
So good.
95 this year. 95 in the summer.
What a badass.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
So he should come to Canada, as I said. I mean, we've got everything the world wants. We've got oil, we've got natural gas, we've got copper, we've got raw materials, we've got industrials, we've got trains, we've got an educated, I feel like I should be doing a commercial for Canada. We got an educated workforce.
You're missing the best parts. You got good Vietnamese food. You got good sushi, right? Like all my favorite things.
And we're bilingual. What more could you want? We got great French restaurants.
And you got all these Canadians. I love Canadians.
Canadians are good.
Canadians have always treated me so well, and I treat them well back. Big fan of Canada.
So despite the noise over the last little bit, the noise regarding Canada and the tariffs and what your president is going to do to us,
I love how you keep calling him my president. Like I have anything to do with this.
I know. The viewers maybe. But anyway, Canada.
I'm first generation here, Francis. Cut me some slack.
Canada has been modestly outperforming the S&P 500. Modestly. We're still down on the year as well. Oil's been a factor there for sure.
Yeah, but you want to know something, Francis? What happens in Canadian indexes is that Canadian indexes are holding up better than America because Canadian indexes don't have mega cap American growth stocks in their index, right?
We do not. Yeah, you're right. Tech is about 10% of the TSX composite. And yours is about 30%. That's tech, and it doesn't include, the comm services and the discretionary names. So we don't have your problems with regard to that. And those weren't problems before. Those were what you wanted to be in. That may be shifting a little bit. I'm not going to talk about the next week. I heard your earlier guess. I mean, we got a bounce happening here, and it may take us higher than we would expect because those things happen. But we got a lot of stuff up in Canada. And I think, as I said, you can buy the dollar cheap. And we got what a lot of people around the world want.
All right. We have a Canadian on the show, legend Francis Horodelski, live from Canada. And we have yet to talk about gold. Francis, what are we even doing here? Hello? New all-time highs for gold. Canada, it's like a thing.
It is a thing. Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's been a bit, there have been some ups and downs over the past year or so, but we're at, 3,024 or something, 25 on spot this morning. And we got the gold companies for sure. I guess the one thing I will say about gold, and it's probably going higher, but people get really, really enthused very quickly. I think I might prefer silver a little bit more right here, but kind of hard to play.
Spoken like such a true Canadian. Gold's just not good enough for you. You need the leverage. You need the beta. I mean, you're a good Canadian, Francis.
Canadian. Anyway, I'm long a lot of gold stocks. The gold stocks lag for a long time.
Yeah.
They're probably playing catch up. They're not expensive. It's like our copper names, and I like copper too. We got good, cheap copper companies. So, you know, that's, I am playing in that sandbox right at the moment. And you can pick in Canada or anywhere, you can just pick, you know, one of the big names like Barrick, or you could do Kinross. I happen to own Kinross, or you can just do the, you know, you could do the ETF that has the commodity, or you can just do one of the baskets of stocks. There's lots of ways to play.
You know, you're talking about like how Canada doesn't have these big tech stocks like the United States. You know, China does have those big tech stocks. China does have those big internet stocks, but they're not trading with the American ones. They're trading with copper, right?
Yes.
So,
Well,
so despite that allocation and the composition of those indexes, it's just not trading with the American, the same stocks in America. They're trading with copper. Like, that's really interesting, isn't it? New 52-week highs for China, by the way.
Yeah, there's two. I guess the biggest couple issues there. I mean, you know, copper's a required product for electricity transmission and development, and you've got this again initiatives from the authorities in China that they want to boost the consumer side or consumption in the economy. So a lot of those tech names have a consumption background, you know, a discretionary. You look at Tencent or JD.com, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of background pushing that's helping that economy, helps copper, and helps a lot of those tech names.
So, you know, when I look at Canadian markets and I see the relative strength there, I'm not seeing oversold conditions and momentum at all, like you're seeing in some of the American indexes. Like, that relative strength is really strong. As a Canadian, are you looking to put more money to work in Canadian equities and Canadian indexes, or are you looking at some of the areas in the United States, maybe for more liquidity? There's just more stocks in general, more to choose from. Like, how do you think about that from a Canadian? Is it different than how Americans think about it?
Yeah, well, Americans on average wouldn't think about going north to invest. I mean, sophisticated
I do.
guys. Yeah, you do, but sophisticated people, your average Joe on the street wouldn't really think about that. The average Joe in Canada, though, has a good chunk of their assets in U.S. equities because of the liquidity, because of the ease of access to your market, whether it's through ETFs or whether it's directly. I can buy any stock I want through my online account at a Canadian bank.
So Canadians look at the American equities in a similar way that the Europeans look at American equities, because their options market isn't liquid enough, and like, you know, they come here for so similar dynamic there, you think?
100%. And in fact, oftentimes if I'm trading copper, I have some Canadian copper names, but they're small. Like, I just go to FCX, I have Freeport.
Or Southern Copper.
Yeah, and I like Freeport right here, right now.
Freeport right here, right now. This is the alpha that we're looking for, Francis. This is what we're looking for. Nice bullish momentum divergence there on the Freeport. You're getting gold, you're getting copper, and you're getting the underperformance that Freeport has brought. I mean, it's a real loser considering what copper and gold have been doing, right?
Yeah, it has. And, you know, we can go, I'm not going to go into all the fundamentals, but of course, Trump wants America to be the best and the biggest copper producer in the world. Well, you know, there are not a lot of players, and Freeport's the name. So it gets buffeted around a little bit. They have some, you know, there's a lot going on behind the curtain, but I like Freeport. But, you know, I do come to your market all the time. I own Uber. I own, I don't own Freeport right now. I should go out and buy some this morning. And I own your banks. I love my banks, but I trade your banks.
We have more of them. We have too many of them, Francis.
Way too many. We have 6 big banks.
Right.
You know, you should only have 6 big ones. And then you've got 4,000 other ones, or whatever the number is. Yeah.
I don't have a say in the matter. Nothing I can do about it, but you're spot on. You're spot on. You said something before about fundamentals. You know, Francis Horodelski, folks, is not just a legend in financial media. Francis Horodelski comes to us from the perspective of a chartered financial analyst, CFA charter holder over here, Francis. No big deal. No big deal.
No big deal. I wouldn't be able to pass the exam today, mind you, but that's, That's for
I think the
that's for
CMT is the
private
same thing. I think
conversations.
it's much harder now than when I took it. So I'm glad, that I don't have
Agree.
to do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. But I do come, I look at PEs and price to sale and growth and balance sheets and cash flow and cash flow yields. And that brings me to, sorry, I'm going to come back to Canada, the energy space.
Yeah.
Because I saw something on, you do a great report every day on insider buying. Vermilion showed up from a Form 4, I guess.
Yep.
A big holder buying more Vermilion, trades in Toronto. European gas company. Just by the way, they have assets European gas assets. It's a Canadian company. But the Canadian companies, energy companies, are trading with pretty attractive free cash flow multiples, single digit PEs. They're giving their money back to shareholders. They're buying stocks. And today there was a good report out of BMO Research looking at insiders actively buying their own stocks, CEOs, CFOs, directors, buying names like Cenovus and Tourmaline and Vermilion. So insiders buying energy in Canada.
Francis, I love how much you like the insider buying. Not a lot of people have an appreciation for something like that, like yourself. I don't think I haven't noticed.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. I mean,
No.
People make mistakes, and there's lots of the old story. There's lots of reasons to sell and only one reason to buy.
Right.
But
I love that you know that. You're such a legend, Francis.
But it's good to keep that. It's one input into a bunch of inputs that I use. So I like it. I love your report it keeps me honest. I look, I see, I do.
No, I appreciate that. Spencer, can you throw up slide 2 here? Because I think that this is relevant as the United States dollar has gotten absolutely destroyed. You started to see a little bit of a bid in that Canadian dollar. And of course, if that Canadian dollar gets going, Francis, I don't know that I want to be betting against crude oil. What do you think?
I would not. And, about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, the number of bulls on the Canadian dollar was 0.
Yep.
There was not a bull to be found on the Canadian dollar versus the US dollar. 0 bulls.
Yep.
I mean, if that's not a buy signal, I don't know what is.
Well, it's certainly not a sell signal. That I'll tell you that
Exactly
much.
Right. Everybody was gone.
Yep. And it wasn't just CAD. It was Euro. It was Swissy. There was a lot of just, the dumbest money on the planet betting on higher dollars. There was just nobody left to buy. And that same dumb money betting on lower CAD, lower Swissy, lower Euro, and we were looking to take the other side of that, obviously, because that's how we roll around here. And so the dollar getting destroyed is not a surprise. Just how fast is getting destroyed, that's a little bit more surprising. I mean, the bet was that the dollar would fall apart, but man, this has been very aggressive selling. And so, my thesis here is that, the dollar sell-off has been so aggressive, and that rotation into these other Forex markets and other international equities has been so aggressive that, you're seeing some of the selling pressure in these mega cap growth stocks. In my opinion, these things are being used as liquidity to help fund that rotation internationally that we've seen so violently, and the US dollar getting destroyed, I think has accelerated that. You think there's anything there?
Well, certainly that's all part and parcel of what has happened here recently. I will just say a couple of things. I mean, there's been a lot of headline risk that has pushed people away from the US dollar. This whole Mar-a-Lago Accord, there's all this kind of noise. 2, the US dollar was way overbought. I mean, everybody was bullish on your dollar. There's no doubt about it. And 3, in terms of... Did
you see this magazine cover? Throw up slide 12. Let's just reiterate this. This is what the good folks over at The Economist magazine, are they British? I think they're British, right, Francis?
They are.
They're definitely not Canadian.
Yeah.
So these Brits are talking about the US dollar here. These got a wad of Benjamins. The envy of the world. As it turns out, it's the exact opposite, Francis. What do you know?
That's exactly that happens. They don't always work, but that one worked. And just back to the speed at which things happen. And I guess that's where, I use the pendulum. The pendulum swings, and it's swinging a lot faster than it has in my career. That's for sure. So you got to be prepared for that swing. You don't want to, you've got to trade at the margin sometimes because it swings and knocks you out periodically. So you got to be trading a little bit more, or stepping back and looking really long haul. I know you like to, zoom out. So zoom out or zoom really far in. You kind of have to do both of those things right at the moment.
That's how, multiple time frames, you get the longer term perspective and then you break it down shorter term, so that, because if you're only looking at these short-term charts, it's hard to put things into context, right?
Yeah.
These underlying trends are going to be much more powerful, the bigger structural trends, than short-term, gyration. So I think putting that into context is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. And people forget that because it's pretty easy to get spooked out. You buy some. Well, I've got a great example of something that you couldn't give away. It was Gilead. Stock was trading between 70 and 90. I don't know, for absolutely forever. And then it broke out. And then there was an absolute feeding frenzy. It took to 119 and change, like in the blink of an eye. Maybe it was short covering. Maybe it was underweight healthcare.
Probably both.
I wish I'd sold it all at 119 and change. Anyway, I didn't. And I think
you'll have another chance, Francis.
Where is it right now? A 111, something like that. Yep. The thing crumbled in the blink of an eye. It was down $8 in the blink of an eye. So that's that pendulum feeding frenzy. Sell it all at the lows.
Yeah, but Francis, hold on. Yes, it was down $8, but it literally doubled in like 6 months. So I know.
I know. As I said, you couldn't give it away in the 70s. And then somebody had to buy it at 119 and change. I mean, they had to have it. It's crazy.
So 0% weighting in healthcare for Canadian indexes. Right?
Pretty much. It's mostly if it's there's one name plus a lot of cannabis names.
Right, healthcare. Sure.
Yeah,
it should be a consumer discretionary as far as I'm concerned, but a staple, probably not healthcare though.
Yeah.
Now in America, right? Good old America, we've got healthcare, third largest component of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, third largest weighting in the S&P 500. So it actually is a big deal over here. Nobody owns it. Nobody wants to own it. Underperformer for a long time. I came into the year thinking, wouldn't it be funny if healthcare is the best performer this year? I'd be surprised if it wasn't at least top 3, simply because of the rotation. So far, you're seeing it. What do you think about healthcare?
Well, I will say, you mentioned you asked earlier about Canadians looking to your market. And I advised Canadians for 25 years. And when I would prepare a portfolio for our brokers to provide to their clients, always said, you want healthcare, age, whatever the fundamental story was at the time, you go to the US. You buy the sector spider, or you buy, Bristol Myers, or you buy a biotech a name like Amgen, or whatever it is. So I like them. Again, you were at, and I use this as kind of a short-term indicator, the percentage of stocks trading above the 50-day. So in January, it was 10% of the healthcare sector was above the 50-day moving average, 10%. Consumer staples almost got to 0, just by the way. And so that to me was a short-term trigger that group was oversold. And then we got to, 80, 90% on staples and healthcare in the space of 6 weeks, let's call it maybe 2 months. And so we got, again, your market swings. You got to pay attention. I like the breadth. The breadth was good, but it was maybe too much breadth, if I can use that description. So we're kind of a bit in no man's land, I would say, on healthcare on a short-term basis. Fundamentally, lots going on, cheap. I could go on and on about the fundamental side of healthcare, which I think there's huge opportunity. But technically, I think you're the expert. I think we're in a bit of no man's land here on the very short term.
You know, it's something that I think gets forgotten a lot is just how different these industry groups are within healthcare, right? So healthcare is like a broad thing. You know, you've got pharmaceuticals,
100%.
you've got the drug makers, and you've got the managed healthcare providers, you've got medical equipment, you've got biotechnology stocks. Like there's so many different things going on. You know, the leadership group has been those medical devices. You're seeing
Yeah.
big winners coming out of there. Some of the drug manufacturers stepping up, right? You mentioned Gilead. You know, I think there's a lot there. So there's a lot of room for improvement because so many of those just have not been participating at all. So I think there's a lot going on there.
And I think one of the things that happened within the sector is with United Healthcare, which was the darling. A lot of people were using that as their, healthcare exposure, I think. And then, bunch of things, front page, and it imploded. So that, I think that, I don't want United Healthcare, blah, blah, blah. So they were going to some of these other names. So, we always talk about rotation from sector to sector, but within, as you say, within sectors, they're not all painted with the same brush. There's rotation within sectors as well.
No question. You talked about market breadth, Francis. When we talk about market breadth, like, I understand that some people like to just take two arbitrary numbers and subtract them from each other and call it market breadth. I've never really that doesn't make much sense to me, right? Like, let's take the new highs and arbitrarily subtract the new lows and pretend that that's market breadth analysis. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. To me, I like to count, right? I'm old fashioned, I just like to count. It's not that hard. Just go one by one. And then so when to me, market breadth, stock market breadth, when I see China hitting new 52-week highs, Germany hitting new 52-week highs, Africa hitting new 52-week highs, Chile hitting new 52-week highs, like literally representation in every continent hitting new highs, like that just doesn't scream breadth deterioration to me. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's broadening participation. It's more stocks, more countries, more investors benefiting. Just because large cap American growth stocks are underperforming doesn't mean breadth is deteriorating because you're arbitrarily subtracting two numbers from one another. Like, I think it's really valuable to count and see what's happening around the world. Do you consider that global participation when you think about market breadth? How do you think about that?
Well, I would agree 100%. But the problem is that big chunks of capital are allocated to the American market. So those
too much, as it turns out, right?
Pardon me?
Too much, as it turns out?
Too much, as it turns out. So, and they're slow. They're like snails, not snails. I'm trying to think of some animal that
a sloth.
A sloth, that's the one. They can't move quickly. Some can more than others, but people get a bit paralyzed in America because they don't want to go. And I don't know how easy it is for an American to go and buy.
Easier than ever, Francis. Never been easier.
And, well, that's probably true. That is probably true. But people have a mentality that in Canada, we had an oil and gas and a metals market forever. So we have gone
and many
outside.
Still think that they do.
Well, we still do. Yeah, if it weren't for, banks and energy are 50% of our market, but banks or financials are 30%. So there you go. But I think it just takes time for a lot of people to, in your market, to look broadly. And certainly breadth has improved around the world. And there's no doubt about it.
Francis, is a combination of things. So you've got like, the home country bias, which is strong with these Americans. Oh, I live in Texas, JC. I don't know where half these countries you're talking about even are, All right, well, invest in Texas. I don't know what to tell you. And then, of course, you have the recency bias, which is, the U.S. has outperformed for so long that it's like, I don't need to go anywhere else, right? So you have the home country bias, you have the recency bias, which is fantastic because then you can squeeze the hell out of those folks, right? And that's what's happening, isn't it?
Well, and it's why buying the dip in some of those tech names, I don't want to call it a slam dunk, but people want to buy that dip. They think, oh my God, I missed Tesla at 400 and wherever it is now, 238 or whatever. I don't even know where it is. That's, so that buying the dip does provide those bounces because that's that bias. And, those are, I don't, Tesla's a whole different story, but, whether it's an NVIDIA big day today with Jensen Huang giving his speech, they want to buy those names on the dip. So, that gives opportunity. When people are afraid, you buy, and when they get excited, you sell.
Francis, this is so great. By the way, we're coming to Toronto in September. We got the whole crew flying in. We're going to have a little shindig. We're going to have a little roundtable discussions about markets. We definitely need to make sure that you're there.
I will.
So Spencer, make
yeah.
sure that Francis gets the invite well in advance. I don't want any excuses that you're gallivanting in the south of France or whatever it is that you do.
Always doing something.
We need you there, or in Austria or whatever you're going.
Yeah.
But Francis, as somebody, I love Toronto. I love Vancouver too, for similar reasons. I'm there to eat, right? All day. Let's go. What do you think? Toronto's like New York in a lot of ways, where you've just got so many cultures just coming together in this melting pot. And I love it so much. What, particularly in Asia is really like where my head is at when I go to a place like Toronto. What cuisine do you think stands out? Is it, the Indian food? Is it the Chinese food, Japanese? Is it, what is it in Toronto that you think Toronto really kills it?
So we've got a whole section of town in the eastern part of Toronto, Little India, and I think they have some of the best Indian food in the world in Little India. I hate to say we cover it all. In Richmond Hill, which is the north part of Toronto, there's some of the best Chinese restaurants in the world. Also downtown on Spadina, giving a shout out to the neighborhoods there. So, and Vietnamese too. There's lots of little small Vietnamese places. There's high-end Vietnamese. There's, the corner Vietnamese place. So Chinese, Vietnamese, Indian. Those would be the high kind of.
What about sushi? I've been to some pretty good sushi places in Toronto.
I'm sorry?
I've been to some pretty good sushi places in Toronto too.
Yes, I'm not a sushi gal, so
you got to hang out with me more. I'll show you how it's done.
No, my husband loves it. It's not my thing.
All right, that's fair. More for me.
More for you, more for my husband. And, we have some really nice, we have all kinds of things. I'll send you a list.
I was in a slum. I'll let you run, but I was in a slum Dharavi in Mumbai, and I'm talking with one of the local kids there, and he's like, I love Mumbai. And I was just bullshitting with him, and he's like, yeah, he was like 18, 19 years old. He's like, yeah, I need to get out of here, obviously, look around. I'm trying to go to Canada. And I'm like, why are you trying to go to Canada? Right. And like, I'm like, why don't you just go to America? Right. Ignorant American here. And he's like, well, I can't get into America. Right. But I can get into Canada. And at the end of the day, like, as far as he's concerned, what the hell's the difference? Right.
Not much.
It's just a bit colder.
Yeah. Whatever. Right. It's all good. So I found that really interesting. I felt like such a dummy,
Yeah. But I'll tell you, that's changed a lot here in the last year. We've curtailed our immigration quotas. So that's for another discussion.
That's for another day. We'll talk about it together in September in Toronto for our Portfolio Accelerator. Francis, tell the folks where they can find you.
They can get me on Twitter at FHORO, or I have a blog and a website, francishorodelski.com.
It's all in the description. Check it out.
There we go.
Thanks a lot, Francis.
Thank you, Francis. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, great to see you guys. Nice to have a chat.
It's great. She's awesome.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
And Bay Street, which is like the Wall Street of Toronto, it's like ADRs everywhere. It's like ADR overload, and then like a Tim Hortons. Like you got like Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, Timmy Ho's. Timmy Ho's over there. Timmy Ho's all over the place.
Tim Hortons is owned by QSR, I believe.
You got like the Hockey Hall of Fame, because of course you do, right? Like,
Yeah. I've been there. Good times. All right. Let's wrap it up here, JC. Shout out to Sarepta. I wonder if that was Mr. Kenny Glick buying the dip this morning. It's only down 23% now, but they released a letter saying that someone who was taking their treatment for their Duchenne muscular dystrophy drug had died due to liver failure, which is apparently a side effect of their drug now. So that is not great, obviously, and tragic. So Sarepta is the big loser of the morning. I'm looking at 10 Cent Music, which is having a good day on their earnings report. Build Your Dreams, BYD, JC, unveiled a 5-minute supercharger for their cars. So that stock was ripping last I checked overnight. And that's kind of it. And then, of course, NVIDIA. Jensen Huang speaks today. So kind of watching that, see what he says. I mean, you probably won't like move the market a whole lot, but I guess he could. I don't know. We'll find out. And that's what I got. So, and then if you are on our email list, you got an email from me like an hour ago telling you that we're doing a special stream tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. We timed it right for when Jerome Powell is speaking. So if he says anything crazy, we'll be there for it. But we're going to do a state of the markets. We're going to get everyone together. Me, JC, Steve, Sean will be there. Louis will be there. Jason Purrs will be there. And we'll just kind of talk it out and see where take the lay of the land, see where things stand, and go from there. So that'll be at 2:30. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, but I'll drop the link right now, actually, in the chat before I forget. And yeah, that's what we got. So thank you to Francis Horodelski for stopping by, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, right here, same time, same place. Here is that link for tomorrow's show, and it'll be on YouTube as well. But I'm going to drop it in the chat right now for you.
I love Canada. Can I just tell you, what a great place. Love Canada. I've never been to Banff, which is like a sin. The fact that I've never been to Banff, man, I've made it around the world pretty, not bad. But Banff is one place that I'm dying to go. Haven't been. Quite the bummer.
Likewise.
Vancouver, fantastic. Yeah. Toronto, fantastic. Montreal, the whole thing. Shout out Canada.
I've been to Canada since 17 or 18, which is a sin because I lived across the river from Canada for like 7 years, and I somehow never made it over the bridge.
Well, we'll all be together there in September.
That's true. So
that's
all right,
gonna be fun. We got a lot of friends in Toronto. Let me tell you.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Dude, we have crazy amount of friends in Toronto.
So you say. I don't have any friends in Toronto.
I'm telling you.
Okay. I believe you. I
should have, I know we're going to have like these private get-togethers. We should have like a public party also and invite like all our friends. Because like seriously, like people from Toronto and Canadians, they support us so much. They have for so many years. Like the least we could do is throw a party. And we like to party. So,
Dude, that's in 6 months. I'm worried about New Orleans first. Then we'll get to Toronto.
All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. Shout out Canada.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Smash the like. We'll see you tomorrow. All right. Go make some money.